Hey, it's Becky from Patchwork Posse, and today I am going to show you how you can make a super quick and simple quilt using a jelly roll, or you can make your own jelly roll by cutting your own 2.5-inch strips. It doesn't take much time. This is a great quilt for sewing during a weekend or at a quilt retreat, or using those leftover strips from other projects. So whether it's a jelly roll or your scrap bin, this is the perfect quilt to make. So the first thing you're going to do is cut your strips. Now, in another video, I showed how I was using the glow ruler. So this ruler works great. If you use the Sew Tights magnetic cutting system, they also have a long ruler that is great for using the magnets on. It keeps the ruler flat, your fabric secured, and allows you to cut multiple strips without it shifting and everything causing problems like that. The Sew Tights ruler, just make sure they have a 1/2 inch on one edge, and so you just need to make sure that you are actually using the correct size. So if you want a 1/2 inch, that's great. If you don't, flip your ruler over and make sure that you are using the right one. So as you can see, it stays in place. I don't have to use a whole lot of pressure to keep this ruler here. I can scoot it easily and line it up for my next cut. And so now I've got 2 strips with this. The last ruler I wanted to show on cutting your strips, if you don't have a jelly roll, is the June Taylor ruler. And this is called Shape Cut. And another one that is similar to this is the Stripology rulers. What is great about this ruler is it allows you to cover up more of your fabric, keeping the fabric secure. So when you're cutting multiple strips, there isn't any shift, any issues with that. You do have to, plan ahead as to where you start and make sure that your measurements are correct. This ruler, like the glow ruler, is a ruler that has these slots that are 1/2 inch measurements. And so you just need to be aware of that. And they don't span the full length of the bolt. This one is square and it doesn't span the full length of the bolt. So I do need to fold the fabric in half to make this work. So I am just going to line this up, and I am going to cut right on that first line. Okay, so 1, 2.5. So I just need to find the next strip, and that's 2.5. This does work better with a larger blade. I just don't have it out right now. So I've got my 2 strips cut. All right, so now using this ruler, I have my last 2 strips cut. So for this quilt, you are going to need 3 strips of fabric. And so I have 2 of each. I'm going to set these duplicates aside. What we're going to do is sew 3 strips together. So this is super simple. This is like a rail fence. And so I just want to take the 2 strips, line up my selvage edges as well as my stitch line, and I'm going to just sew from one end all the way to the other. With that sewn, you're going to just open this up and you're going to place your 3rd strip, right sides together, line up your selvage edges as well as your sew line, and sew from one end to the other. All right, the next thing you are going to do is you are going to iron or press these so the seams all go one direction. I just did this just to keep my brain straight. If you want none of these, you're going to be matching up like the corners of the blocks and not these seams. These seams are never going to line up with anything else. So it doesn't really make a difference if you press them one way or another. All right, with that all pressed, what we're going to do is we are going to square up one edge because we really want these accurate. We're going to be cutting 6.5 inch pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the edge of my fabric with one of the lines on the cutting mat, and then I'm going to just trim off just that salvage edge. And now I can measure 6.5 inches and make a cut every 6.5 inches. If you want to use your Stripology ruler for this, that would be fine. If you have a larger or a square ruler to cut with, that works as well. So you can line up the bottom edge as well as your straight edge on the side. But you are just going to cut this whole thing down every 6.5 inches. If you find that all of a sudden this edge is a little wonky and it's not as straight as you like, just trim it off just trim just barely a little bit off what you need, and then start it again just to keep them straight. Because sometimes our seams aren't right or for whatever reason, and so you just, if you need to straighten up that one edge again, go right ahead and do it. There is no rule saying that it is wrong. So let's see right there. All right, so I have all of my pieces done. The next thing that you are going to do is just repeat this for as many strips as you have, pairing them up in sets of 3, and then you can start laying them out. Now, if I had multiple pieces, I would show you with my scraps, which I will show you in just a minute, but I wanted to have you take a look at how the blocks are set up once you have all of your pieces cut. There's going to be a vertical block, a horizontal block, then another vertical block. And as you can see, I wouldn't be putting this together like this because all of my fabrics are touching, and this is great for scraps and stuff because you'll have a lot of fabric. But next to our vertical block, we want to alternate it with our horizontal. And so we are always doing a vertical, horizontal, vertical pattern with this. And you might see some secondary designs come in depending on how you lay it out. You can decide to have touching fabric or not. But once you start pairing your strips up in sets of 3, you'll get a lot of variations. Now I got 6 pieces that are 6.5 inches out of those 3 strips. So all 6 are identical, and so when you start laying this out in your quilt, you will want to spread them out so they're not touching and they're not visible. This is what the quilt looks like when it is all laid out and sewn together. So as you can see, you've got horizontal, vertical, and then the alternating following through. So there will be a picture in the video that I'll add so you can see the full layout. Let's take a look at the quilt. I've got it hanging on my design wall, and as you can see, I've got 9 rows with 9 blocks in each row. And you can kind of see a pattern I did when I laid it out. You see that blue stripe fabric, which is kind of going diagonally here. So if you want, you can find a pattern in there. If you don't want, don't worry about it. This is super scrappy, very simple to make. You just need to make sure that your blocks are alternating so you don't have two verticals next to each other. And the only seams that you need to really line up and work with when you're sewing these rows together are the intersections where the blocks meet. So as you can see, none of our strips are lined up with another set of seams. You only have the seams in the corners. So this is great, a great quilt for a beginner because you only need to worry about those. And if you need to pin them, go right ahead. So that's a look at kind of the rail fence jelly roll quilt. And it's great for a single jelly roll pack or cutting your own strips and making a new quilt out of all of your scraps.